Hello everyone, welcome back to the Good Works podcast. This is a very special episode because what does it take for a church to grow in 2025, 2026? That's a big question, a big question. A lot of churches are wanting growth, a lot of churches are seeing growth. But this is not about going from, the first 1,000 to 5,000. This is for the regional churches across Australia, across the world, across the US that are, struggling to crack 50. They're struggling to crack 100 people. So this podcast really is going to help all of those regional pastors of smaller churches gain insight into what it's like to grow a church from, say, 30 to 300. And that's what we want to share with you today. The interview that I have that's coming up is with my pastor, Pastor Matt Ellerton of Encounter Church here in regional Victoria. We have probably 200 to 200 people on a regular basis, and the church is growing, and we're very, very excited about that. We talk about heaps of things in this chat. We talk about some of the keys to growth, whether growth should be a goal or an outcome, or maybe that's just a symptom of a good church. Should growth be a goal? I don't know. We'll talk about it in this chat. And also, we'll talk about how some key things that you probably should be doing in your church to try and get some growth as well. When should you go to a second service? When should you stay as one service, going multi-campus? All of these questions will be answered in this podcast. So if you are a regional church pastor who is pastoring, 30, 50, 70, and you want to get to 100, 150, hey, maybe 200, you want to grow your church, this is going to be a really, really exciting chat for you to listen to. I cannot wait. Like and subscribe, follow if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Let's get straight into the chat. I don't want to talk too much because this is a really fun chat. Pastor Matthew Ellerton. All right, Matthew Ellerton of Encounter Church in regional Victoria. Enjoy the chat, everyone. Pastor Matthew Leslie Ellerton.
Leslie.
That's your middle name, right?
That's my middle name is nearly as good as Leslie.
What is your middle name?
Kenneth.
Kenneth. After Copeland?
Quite possibly. I probably would think it's either Copeland or my dad's dad.
Oh, yeah.
Not sure.
It's one of the two.
Never thought to ask.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
I just assumed it was Copeland.
Yeah. So I wanted to chat to you ever since you mentioned, a few months ago, maybe 12 months ago, you mentioned an idea that's been kind of simmering away with you about either maybe a podcast or a book of something.
A school
of growing churches, like from not mega churches, but like more specifically like 50 to 200, I think was the range.
Absolutely, because the idea is basically like there's some really great leadership stuff out there, and whether it's Groeschel or Andy Stanley or whatever, but most of us don't have the resource of 10,000 or 20,000, or in Groeschel's case, 100,000 people.
Yes,
and I do think that there is this idea that, especially in the Pentecostal churches, that if you don't hit a certain number, or you don't, we've all got to aspire to be that sort of thing. Whereas I think the reality, though, especially in rural churches and new churches, we all want to see people come into the kingdom, but sometimes it's not a matter of how do I get from 35 to 1,000. How about we just get to 75? Or how do we just get 125?
Yeah.
And I think there's some pretty... there's some things over my last sort of 15, 17 years that seem to have worked in that space, if I can use that term. But.
Yeah. So I've only really been in small churches. I grew up in a church that was probably 75 people throughout my kind of younger years, and then we moved to another church which is probably 50 people. And I remember both churches wanting growth. My parents were on the leadership teams, and I'd kind of sneak into meetings and they'd be talking about growth and how they can grow and what can they do. To me, it never really seemed to happen, unfortunately, because I don't know what they were implementing to make it happen, or, what steps they were taking. Since coming to this church, I know growth is talked about, but I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it's the goal.
No.
It's definitely talked about, but in your experience over your kind of Is it 17 years? Is it 17 years in ministry?
Oh, no, I'd say it'd be close to 17 years or probably I'd say 15 years of senior leadership, senior ministry. What am I? I'm 46. So 16 years it would be.
Right. Okay. So just on that point of like wanting growth, is it good to want growth, or do you think it just happens organically when you focus on other things?
I think that's that one. And I think that's part of the issue. I actually think there are two, at least for me, people listening might have other issues or other ideas, but for me, I think the two things that actually ironically stop growth is, number one, is making that your focus, and two is, as I said before, trying to get from 35 to 400. I liken it to, if my 4-year-old son wants a suit and I give him mine, that would be ridiculous.
Yes.
Right. And so what happens is we try and put these things on, which are essentially just a suit that's far too big for us. And then we're surprised when it looks ridiculous. And so I think the issue is when we talk about growth, and this is the danger of focusing on growth, is that we forget to love the people who we've got. And what happens when we forget to love the people that we've got is we actually end up worse than that. We dehumanize them. They become resource. They become whatever. I actually think if to simplify it the most, and this could probably just about end the podcast if people got this.
That's fine.
But like, think about it from a parent's perspective, right? My kids never had any problem wanting to invite their friends over or do any of that sort of stuff. Why? Because they knew it was safe. They knew they were going to be loved, looked after. I'm not going to be too embarrassing. They're going to get some food. They're going to be, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Like, so if we, and this, you can, whatever statistics you want to read, it's something ridiculous now in the season we're in. It's something like 80% of people would go to church if they were asked.
Yeah, wow.
So it's this idea of, so why aren't people asking?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because, so is it safe? Is it fun? Are they going to get fed? Are they going to get embarrassed?
Yeah.
These sorts of questions.
Yeah.
And I actually think if you could transliterate that into your situation, that in and of itself would be a game changer. I get a bit frustrated now, and again, I've been there. Look, I've got my wallet at home that I had from 15, 16 years ago. And on there was a list, and I haven't looked at it for 16 years. And the idea was one day I'm going to have a look at it and see what did I achieve.
What you've achieved.
It's like a vision board, whatever.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you one of them on there is to be a church of over 1,000. And you're like, why?
Yeah.
And I don't mean why. Like, obviously, I actually want to, in a sense, I want to be a church over 1,000, but in the sense of I just want as many people in the kingdom as possible.
Yeah.
Whether it's our church or another church, I don't care. We just want people living in the kingdom. But when you make it your focus, like, you get these people go, oh, we're going to have 30 locations in 5 years, or we're going to have whatever. It's like, well, what's wrong with the people you've got?
Yeah.
Why not love them? Like, because once you make it about, and I get it. Like, I've heard it preached a lot. And look, let's be real honest. I've preached it myself back in the day. The church is the only organisation that exists for people who don't belong in it yet. And I do get that to a point, but not at the expense of the people. What does Jesus say? Jesus gets to a church of basically 12,500 people. Within one preach, it's back down to 12. And what does Jesus pray? Thank you that I've looked after the 12 you gave me. Like, I could have, you grew it to 12,500. It wasn't a lament. No, I've still got the 12 that you gave me.
Yeah.
If we were just happy with the ones that people, I think, and again, you can get a lot more Bible than that. People know you're my disciple by how you love each other. This is my command, love each other. Like, it's very hard to love each other well when you're focusing out there more so than on.
Yeah, it's almost like you need the strong foundation of people. The 12 people that Jesus had. You need the strong foundation of people that the rest of them can kind of lean on, I guess, or build off or something.
Yeah, I think so. The way we sort of did a lot of our leadership development or building teams might be a better way to say it is so Rachel, my wife. And our kids at the time, they were pretty young, but you go, okay, what is it that we could do? We want to reach our community. We want to see people meet Jesus. What could we do? And then we would only do what we could do. But then we'd find that there's these 2 or 3 youth kids that would get on board. And they became, and that's a bonus, right? Because we've done it to our limit. but you get 2 or 3 people on, well, now it's easy, right?
Yeah.
And then they start showing up regularly. So it's like, oh, cool. Well, what can Rachel and I and these 3 and our kids do? And then there'd be a few other people that would jump on board. And all of a sudden, you're building team, you're having fun together, you're achieving together, whatever, but it's inclusive rather than just treating them as a resource, because people aren't a resource, people aren't meant to be used and abused. And we use that language, oh, God wants to use you. No, he doesn't. God wants to love you and be in a relation. He has opportunities for you to step into.
Yeah.
But he doesn't want to use you. He's not a user of people. What's that Paul says, you don't need to serve God like he needs something, like he can be served with human hands. He just wants to love you and be in a relationship and know what's best for you. And if we love people like God loves us, that's attractive.
Yeah. Do you think there's differences in denominations that grow quicker? Like, obviously, anyone who's watching this that doesn't have a lot of experience with church will know of, mega churches that seem like rock concerts, and they seem to grow exponentially, and it's because it's like an experience to go to church, right? When you go regionally, it's still an experience, but it's not that, awe-inspiring. Well, maybe it is if you have an encounter with the Holy Spirit, but there's no lights and smoke machines and fireworks and all that stuff. Denomination,
we should have fireworks.
We should have fireworks, yeah. Denominationally, I don't know if that's a word, but do you know of growth trends that are happening? Like, is the Catholic Church growing?
Look, the Catholic Church is and probably will always be the biggest denomination in the world. Look, I think every denomination brings something different. For me, it's about what is going to help you get close to God and live free and love people well, And I think different people, what is it, horses for courses kind of idea.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that historically there has been a growth trend towards that experiential style of church, which I'm not against, because we kind of got this idea, or at least I sort of heard people talking about, that it's either or, like it's either a God encounter or it's a concert. Well, why can't it be both?
Yeah.
Just because you got drums and lights and a smoke machine doesn't mean that. I liken it to the tabernacle. There's gold, there's colours, there's the smoke, there's the sounds and the smells. It was a very emotive thing, but there was the presence of God was there as well. So why can't you have both? But what I would also say about the rural church scenario, 2 things. Firstly, so that studies have been done. Who did I hear this from? I think it was Shane Willard, was talking about that somebody did a study over the past dozen pandemics that the world's seen. I don't know how many there was, but there's had the Spanish flu and the and there's always been this 2, 3, 4 year window after a pandemic that people go back to the faith of their childhood, whether it's Muslim or Christian or whatever. So that probably plays a part. I think there's also something bigger at play, where young people are coming back to the church in droves. And what is interesting is they're not interested in the experience, and I don't even think that they're that interested in how doctrinally strong you are. What they're interested in is authenticity. So we have 2 services. We have a bigger service, which is more the production, and we have a small service of 30, 40 people. And there's a lot of our teenagers who actually prefer the service of the 30, 40 people. To them, it feels more authentic, or it feels more, I don't know. Now, I'm definitely not saying that our larger location is not authentic. It absolutely is. But there is a sense where, what I'm trying to say is that I think the method is mattering less and less. It's, are you genuinely following Jesus? Do you believe, are you smoking what you're selling? That's what people seem to be more drawn towards. I think the churches that are growing right now, that seems to be more the indicator.
Speaking of authenticity, there's as someone who's on social media a lot, for work and just for pleasure, or not pleasure a lot of the time. Let's cut that bit. A lot of churches they put a lot of effort into what I guess would be kind of some form of guerrilla marketing, which is their social media content, their videos, their, all this sort of stuff. They put a lot of effort into it. Do you think that is a cause for growth in the church? Obviously, younger people seeing a church on social media and going, oh, that looks, kind of cool, and then heading along?
I think that it's probably both. I think it probably helps and detracts.
And in addition to that, is that a good starting ground for an authentic connection to that church, or they just want to go and have a look and then leave?
Look, as I said, I think it sort of attracts and detracts in the sense of, for whatever reason, social media doesn't seem to be the most pro-church organisation out there, and so there's a lot of mocking of what churches are doing online and things like that. So I think it can help and hinder. But I think about it a little bit differently, and this is not to. I'm not meaning to be judgmental. Other churches can do what they like. It's not my circus, not my monkeys. But I feel like we've got to be careful, and this comes back to even what we were talking about earlier, in the sense of one of the indicators of what do I want to communicate, to people, to help people grow in that space, is to be very careful that we're doing our job and letting the Holy Spirit do his job. Like, what I mean by that is Jesus builds the church. If we're doing, I feel like church growth in a lot of ways is a faith issue, not a method issue. Although the two overlap, there's no doubt. But if our method is stepping into, I want to build the church, then I'm taking my faith out and putting my method in, and I'm doing his job as well as mine. And I think that's where we burn out. Like, I've had a burnout, and I think the reason why we have a burnout is because we're stepping into a space, a mantle, a grace, whatever it is, that's not ours to step into. And so I feel like we've got to be really careful to let God do his bit. So, I mean, to overly simplify it, now I think that there are structures and there are thoughts and there are ideas that will help us. But at the end of the day, if we could say our job is to love people well, his job is to build the church, that will save us. Now, where I wrestle is, I'm convinced, I think our church is the best church on the planet, and I think people would love to come here if they knew it was on. So where is the line between letting people know that we exist and this is who we are, what we believe, where we're going, and doing a drive to try and see our city saved, when actually it's not our job to build the church, it's his job to build the church. So that's probably a wrestle that I'm still trying to work out. But I feel like our job, the way I say it, and it's a little bit crass perhaps, but I think our job is to try and build a church our job is to try and create a church that he wants to build. Yeah. So if we're being unhealthy and we're being whatever, God doesn't want to put his babies in an unhealthy incubator. But at the same time, I'm also aware, like, I grew a church, and I'm very aware of what I just said there, and I grew the church from 6 to nearly 100. But I don't think God grew the church. Now, he was faithful and gracious in the midst of it, but I grew the church. I was burning myself out, going after, doing. There was no faith involved. It was, because we all know that the God of the universe who created order out of chaos and put the stars and whatever, if I don't do my bit, he's going to fall over, which obviously isn't the case. So I think we've got to be careful to make sure that we have faith that he's going to build the church if we do what we're called to do, which is love people.
That's right, yeah. Going back to the, I'm not sure if we've spoken about this yet, but keeping people in the church.
Yeah.
Now, once you get to, your 1,000, right, your 1,000 people goal.
Yeah.
How do you think that you keep people, connected within the church? I was listening to a podcast from a pastor who over in the US who pastors a 14,000 church, and he said on the podcast, he's like, I can't pastor all those people. No. I can't go for coffee with them every week. I can't. So he's got systems and things in place where there's kind of like mini churches within his church. Is it the same at 1,000 people, do you think? Is it the same at 500 people? Like, when do you think, what's the number you think that it gets to a point where it's like, oh, or maybe you could, but like, I can't look after all these people individually anymore.
Yeah. So you can lead, say, 100 people, but you can't pastor 100 people, right? That's the thing. What depends how we want to define this stuff, right? So I would say, okay, so the way I probably would have framed it, now I'm only going to stop at 250 or maybe 300 because that's as big as I've gotten to.
Yep.
I don't know what it looks like at the next level. I suspect it's not a lot different, but it's a lot different, but not in what we're talking about now.
Yeah.
So it goes something like this in my head. I reckon from 0 to 50, if you have a pastoral gifting on your life, you can do that. Right. Because if you're talking about 50 people, right, you're probably talking about, say, let's just pick a number, maybe 18 households, right? If you're talking about, there's a couple of single people, but there's a couple of there with 4 kids and there's a couple, right? You're talking maybe 18 households, 20 households. Well, I can have coffee with 20 people. I can visit 20 people. I don't need Elvanto. I don't need Planning Centre. I could use a spreadsheet if I wanted to. But at the end of the day, I can just go down my contact list. Hey, I'd love to catch up with you both for coffee.
Yeah.
Right. That's easy. Hey, what's going on in your life? What's Jesus been speaking to you about? Right. I can easily care for that. Once you start approaching the 50 mark, then you need to start having more systems and stuff in play. And it seems to be up to about 120. So you need to be, at that point, at 50, you need to be looking at trying to get on as close to full time as you can. You need to be starting to raise up other people who can do some of this for you.
Yeah.
And then from 120 to that sort of 200 mark, it steps up another level. But 200 and over, we're in the process of working that out. But here's also what I would say. I would also say be careful not to, again, wear the suit that's too big, or alternatively, also try to be careful around keeping in your lane. So we don't do a lot of follow-up. In fact, we do little to no follow-up. We check people in on a Sunday. Like when I say check people in, just check them off.
Yeah.
And the idea is, look, most people's boards want to know some numbers of what's happening. But really at the end of the day, the only follow-up we'll do is if you've missed 2 or 3 weeks in a row, you'll get a text message that says, and it's not like, you've missed church for 3 weeks, where have you been? But it's just like, hey, just thinking of you, how you doing? Because we just want to make sure that they're not falling through the cracks. They could be in a hospital bed and not being able to tell anybody or whatever.
Yeah.
But the reason why, and it's a little countercultural, it's a little counterintuitive, and even it's definitely counter how I was raised to lead in a Pentecostal church. But at the end of the day, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to grow an organisation, or are we trying to create a community of people who love Jesus? And I'm trying to create a community of people. So you can't legislate hard. So and again, you do you, not my circus, not my monkeys, but I have no desire to have a team of people who are ringing up everybody who missed a Sunday.
Yeah. I used to have to do that when I was in real estate. If someone came to an open house, I have to call every single one of them.
Right. And that's what it feels like.
And they hated it.
Right. And that's what it feels like.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, now, unless you are 12, one of my biggest leadership mantras is you're not 12. So, people come late. And I used to want to go after it and whatever. And then I realised that actually the problem with going after it is there's going to be a single mum who, as she was leaving the house, the nappy exploded and whatever. And they're going, look, you know what, I'm going to be too late. I'm just not, actually I will go. And then I'm talking from the front and attacking her for being late when I should be celebrating the fact that she came. And there's a myriad of reasons why people could be late. Rather, why not do our best to create a space and place where people want to be there on time? You're not 12, but if you either want to be there or you don't. So even with our small groups, and again, this is a little bit different, we don't do organised small groups. We do organised connection opportunities. Create your own small groups. So people go, oh, we need to do a Bible study. Awesome. Grab 3 of your friends and go study the Bible. You're not 12. I wish I have we need prayer meetings. Great. Grab 3 or 4 of your friends and pray together. Pastoral care was never meant to be structured or organ. Like, again, you can't legislate someone's heart.
Yeah.
So, and again, I can't, as you said before, like Jesus had 12 disciples. I can't have 214. So, I can't go like, and even if you could, it doesn't build trust, right? So if I'm going to say, hey, what's Jesus been speaking to you about, or tell me your deepest, darkest secrets, if we haven't had some kind of relationship.
Yeah, that's weird.
Right? So weird.
Yeah.
So I think most of this stuff, we've got to be a bit careful. I understand the heart behind the legislating, the heart behind the organisation is that we don't want people to be missed out. We don't want people to fall through the cracks. But the flip side of that would be is they're not 12. If they want to be a part of it, they will. If they want to open up and be discipled, they will. And on that, I actually think part of the issue, I think why people don't want to be discipled most of the time is we've got this idea that I have to go and submit my life to you. Whereas I think Scripture's a lot more about how do we disciple each other. And the reason why I say that, like Scripture in a lot of ways is how do I disciple you, but that's coming from Jesus. We're all meant to become, like, I don't want you to become my disciple. I want you to become a disciple of Jesus. So we're discipling each other to become like Jesus, not discipling you so you become like me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you always you say, look, if you've got a heart for the church, then you can serve, you can be a part of the church.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a heart for the church and you're like, I'll just miss this week, or we're not going to force you to come.
Right.
One thing that was mentioned, I think maybe 3 weeks ago in the leadership meeting, like on a Tuesday morning, we were talking about second services.
Yeah.
And this is always a thing, that it's the first time I've heard you talk about it, I think. But I like the way you put it, where it's like you don't want to put in a second service, because we're getting to the point really where the auditorium's getting quite full. We've got the other kids' church is really full. What do we do? Do we do a second service? If the second service, is there's like 20 people there, is it worth doing a second service? Because they could probably just squish in the first one. Like when, I know you're probably still wrestling with the decision or wrestling with thinking about it, but like when do you think is the point to, there's a rule that you said, there's like an 80-20 rule or something?
Yeah, so it comes from the Pareto principle, which is the 80-20 rule, but I actually think it's just, there is just something, it's like 80% is a magic number. I don't know how or why, I'm sure it's in the Bible somewhere. In fact, I'm sure it's not, but the point is that once you, like, the thing is when you are in the cafe and you turn around and you're elbowing someone's coffee out of their hand.
Yeah.
That's not comfortable. You don't want to come. Like when you're sitting here like this on a Sunday. So the 80% rule is, it seems to be about the approved kind of idea that around that 80% is a comfortable amount of full. Now the problem is that, it's not a law, like hit 80%, let's do 2 services.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about 80% of what, right? So there's 80% of the car park, 80% of the auditorium, 80% of the kids' church, 80% of your leadership capacity. You're not going to exceed any of those. So that's where it gets really interesting. Like, if people in the car park have to park 8 blocks away, they're probably not coming back the next Sunday. Now, so what we found this a lot actually, in our play group, in our kids' church, that when it's one of those Sundays where all the stars align and everybody, they want those people that come once a month, it's all on that one day.
Yes, it seems to happen that way, doesn't it?
Yeah, the next week is really, really low because we've exceeded those. It's uncomfortable for people. It's exceeded those kind of things. So we're sort of looking at, we're actually in a situation where probably our kids' church will probably exceed 80% before our auditorium will. So our auditorium may not actually be the best guide of 2 services. But again, we'll see when the time comes. We've still got a little bit of space. But to me, what it all comes down to, and I think this is the key to everything that we're meant to be doing as the church, is how do we love people well the best?
Yeah.
Does going to 2 services going to love people well, or is it not? You know, like 2 services is a massive ask on a team, you know, to get.
Yeah, and especially when your team, you got 2 services, but still like one team, you know?
Right, and you have to, because you got to sort of go back to back and have one team, because like if you're a church our size, like we're say 250 give or take, we don't have room in our team to get 2 separate teams.
Yeah, that's right.
And not play I mean, we could, but then they'd be on every week.
Yeah.
And we're going to burn everybody out. So we need to love them well. But then that begs the question, do we need to change our structure? Is loving the church well doing 2 services? Well, in that case, loving our team well might be, okay, maybe we've got to strip the teams back a bit. Maybe we've got to relook at how we do it. How do we do that? But to me, everything has to go through that lens of how we're loving people well.
Yeah.
And again, so if you're a mum and you're there 5 minutes late with your pram and you can't get through the door because there's too many people, well, we're not loving them well. But at the same time, we've also got to love our teams well, and we've got to love our whatever. And like, you can't also deny there's something about atmosphere when there's a group of like-minded people. So you'd much rather have 1 service of 250 than 5 services of 50.
Yeah.
So you've got all that, which is sort of weighing it up, right?
That's right. And we do kind of have what I guess you would call somewhat of an overflow, which is kind of the foyer area. But I don't know whether you've had feedback on this, but like if the foyer area was, you know, full and the auditorium was full, I feel like maybe there might be a disconnect between the 2 groups of people. Like, it'd obviously be great to have them in one room.
Yeah.
But the foyer area, you know, I don't think we're at that point where it's full, is it? Are we?
Not in the service side of things. So for me, I'm probably less interested with the disconnect. I'm probably less interested with the disconnect in the service as I am in the disconnect after the service. So to me, what makes a good Sunday is not how well I preached or what octave range the worship leader was in. I'm probably more interested in how many people hung around. Were people left on their own?
Yeah.
Were people genuinely connecting and trying to, one of our mantras is we want to go from rows with strangers to circles of friends, and then from circles of friends to tables of discipleship. So are we seeing people building their circles of friends? That's, to me, is the key indicator.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, even to go back to your question, like if our service size is a hindrance to that because it's either too small or too large, that's probably going to be one of the key indicators. And we're blessed with our weather, so we can have a lot of our 9 months of the year, our foyer can be outside, which gives us plenty of space. But so that, there's a lot of different variables. But what I would encourage people is don't rush into it. You're better off to do 2 services, put up with it being, because you don't want to go, if you're 80%, let's do 2 services. You want to be over 80% for a month.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to have 2 services where you're going to go, flip, we could have had these in, we could have had the same amount of people. And it's just too much work.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I don't know, but definitely, I would imagine it could be. Knowing the amount of work that goes into one service, double it. Like,
well, when we did COVID and we're doing like 10 services, it's just a killer. And even just I preach twice a Sunday sometimes with here in Numurkah, and it's funny. I think I'm just getting old too, though, because when I was 35 preaching, I was preaching 10 times a month. It didn't really bother me too much. Whereas now it's twice a Sunday, and I go home and fall asleep on the couch.
Yeah. We are technically now, I guess, a multi-campus church. And I know you said that wasn't the goal, but we've...
No, what I mean by... No, it's not that... So it's not what drives me.
Yeah. No,
if God wants to do that, and again, I want as many people in the kingdom as possible. So if that means I have to, and I literally have to, I have no desire to be a mega church. If I want to be a CEO, I'll start a business. Like I want to pastor people and love people well. I'm happy to have multiple services or multiple locations if that's what God has for us, because it means we're reaching and building the kingdom. But it's not what wakes me up in the morning.
So just out of personal curiosity, the service, the other location that we have is obviously the smaller location. It's more kind of intimate, stripped back. Is that what we want to keep it as kind of maybe another option, or do you think that will grow? Ideally, will that grow into something that's similar to what we have here?
I don't.
And could that act as maybe a second service for us instead of having?
In a sense, it kind of already does. There are a handful of people that, if maybe they go camping for the weekend, and so instead of trying to get back for this service, they know that they can then go to the afternoon service.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing, and maybe we need to promote that a little bit more as an option and things like that. But I don't know the answer. I don't think it should be the same as this, because when you're in a different town, even though we're close, what are we, 20 minutes, 25 minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about a town of 5, 6, 7,000 versus a town of 60, 70, 80,000. You're talking there's just differences. So it should never, I think church should be a one size fits one scenario. I've been part of the mega church where this is how we do it. And it takes a lot of nuance to be able to do that. Because, as I say, Shep is different from Melbourne, which is different from Bendigo, which is different from Numurkah or whatever. So it's not easy to do that, because even if you're trying to do a one size fits all, you've still got to find ways to bring flavours and nuances in. And so then you go, well, what's the point of one size fits all then? So I think culture has to stay the same. While they are Encounter, and I'm using that word with a cringe, because it's not we are Encounter. But while there is an Encounter in another location, our culture needs to be the same, our vision needs to be the same, but the rest of it has to be them. And so it may never look like us, or it may look identical to us, depending on how it grows and its resources. And to be honest, I don't know what the future holds. I think either is brilliant. I do suspect that the way the world and the government are going, multi-campus churches may be the best way to go, just because for smaller churches, the governance and compliance and the admin is flipping hard. But at the same time, so we're wrestling this idea: how do we provide the covering and the governance, but allow them to be their own self? And we're working that out. And we're sort of building the plane in the air, but I think we're doing okay so far in that space. So maybe that's how it'll end up, or perhaps it'll end up that it'll grow to a point that it's self-sufficient and it will become its own thing. And to me, either is a win.
I before I moved to Victoria, I was at a church in New South Wales with my parents that had multiple campuses, and I think in about a 2 or 3 year period they added 3 or 4 more campuses on. And everyone in the leadership was ecstatic about more campuses, but while they were adding more campuses, our church at home was dwindling, and it was going down. And I just remember talking to my parents about it, being like, why don't they care about us? Why don't they, they're adding, but what about growing, and what they have already? So I think it's definitely instead of looking like you're large, right, and you've got all these different campuses, I think it's probably, and you know this, but I think it's probably wise to focus on what you've got.
Well, I think the two are sort of symbiotic. I think when you focus on what you've got, that's when you get healthy growth. But I also I don't know enough about your church scenario to make any comment on that, but I do feel like it's sort of hard to judge. There are churches out there that are just planting, almost for the sake of planting churches. But then, so in our scenario, for example, it wasn't on our radar. In fact, I preached 3 months beforehand what you just said, that I have no desire to have campuses. And then this church was going to shut down if we don't take it on. And we sort of start praying and going, well, maybe it'd be devastating to see it shut. So maybe we need to take that responsibility.
Is there any other churches out there? Was that the only one, or was that
it's the only Pentecostal?
The only Pentecostal,
church out there.
Which is something I think should be preserved.
Yeah, I think so. That's right. But look, I got to be honest. I struggle with the mindset of. And I think I struggle with it because I had it, and I had it from an unhealthy perspective. So it's probably unfair to assume that everybody has this from an unhealthy perspective. But I wanted to be the pastor of 1,000 church and have 3 locations or whatever because of my insecurity and because of, then I'm going to get invited to preach around the world kind of, all those sort of egotistic reasons, and they're not good reasons. I think, and not only that, I think I'm a bit older and wiser now too, where, you know, I just want a peaceful life. And when you hear people like you're talking about, 2 or 3 locations in 2 or 3 years, I just hear hard work.
Yeah. Well, I
just want peace.
I look at Craig Rochelle on social media, and he travels to all of his different locations. I go, oh. I mean, I'm not even a pastor. I'm like, I just want to go to one location. I want to know everyone there.
Right.
That type of thing.
And that's the challenge is because, and I've actually found that when we talk about some of the growth challenges we did before, one of the biggest challenges for me for crossing the 200 barrier was I'm finding it harder and harder to know that everybody's name and the name of their kids and the name and what they do and know who they are. Like, you know, generally speaking, I know their names, but are you the doctor or are you the doctor? Like, which kids are yours again? And I hate that because I'm a pastor. I want to just love people and have people in my world, and that is a big hurdle to cross when you get past that sort of 200 mark of. Some people don't seem to care, but I think that sort of comes back to what we're talking about in the sense of, why are we doing this? Are we doing this to see people's lives changed and to love people well? Yeah. Or are we doing this because I just want to be a mega church? And again, I'm not opposed to mega churches. We wouldn't be who we are without Hillsong and Planet Shakers and these sorts of churches. The global impact has been phenomenal. So I'm not bagging them out. I'm just saying it's not for me.
Now, to finish up, I'm just wondering whether off the top of your head, you could give maybe 5, if there's any pastors watching this, maybe they're at a church of 30 or 50 or whatever, and maybe they're new, maybe it's their first church they're pastoring and it's 50 people and they're like, well, I'd love growth, but do I aim for growth, that type of thing. They're struggling with that conversation that you did. Like 5 things that you think that they could do, whether operationally, relationally, or just kind of aesthetically, whatever you think.
I think the first thing that I would do is circles essentially. Like, you know, so if we talk about Jesus had, there was the 72, there was 12, there was 3, there was 1. I think it's great to know where your circles are at, because not everybody is at the same level. So when you're having your coffees with people, who are the people that you have a connection with, you know, like a chemistry? Who are the people who have a heart for the church, or who are the people who just want to attend a church? Who are the people, right? Because, you know, again, going back to that Pareto principle, the idea is that you should spend 80% of your time with 20% of your people. And I don't think that I necessarily agree with it as a percentage, but I agree with the principle in the sense that you want to spend the most amount of people with the people who are going where you want to go, who get it. Yeah. That would be my thing. And then be happy with that. So as I was saying before, like, just plan around, okay, I'm not going to get frustrated that Josh never comes and serves. I'm just going to plan something around the people who I can rely on. And if Josh comes and serves, that's a bonus. The second thing I would be doing is, and you're going to find the common thread is just loving people well.
Yeah.
Right. So the first one is bring people in. Be intentional about who you bring in. But and that's not just for the record, just to clarify. I'd still be having coffee with everybody once a month. If you're a church of 30 people, if you're a church of 70 people, I'd still be I'd still be doing the stuff. But when I'm talking about the actual leaning in, the discipling, the visioning forward, the building, you know, find those people that you're going to build with.
Yeah.
The second thing I would probably be looking at doing, there's a few. So I would be focusing on the community side of things. What I mean by that is, I used to get in a lot of trouble with youth because people would say, oh, what's your main priority with youth? And I'd say, oh, having fun, and they're like, shouldn't Jesus be the number one priority? It's like, well, yeah, but if the room's empty, what's the point of being able to preach Jesus? And so what I realized was we have this thing, especially in the evangelical Pentecostal church, that we want to get them, I don't know, born again, baptized, speaking in tongues and whatever, all on the one Sunday.
Yeah.
But, like if you think of kids' church, you've got them from prep to grade 6. You got them for 7 years. For youth, you got them from year 7 to year 12. What's that? 6 years you've got them for. you got time.
Yeah.
Focus on the community and the building relationship and the belonging, and let the journey. I mean, and too, like, I mean, it's a ridiculous idea to think that we're ever going to in this lifetime know everything there is to know about God or become it's just so infinite. So why try?
Yeah.
Just focus on the loving people, the community, the doing things well, and in the process, obviously, we're going to preach Jesus. We're going to try and get people, not try, but, show them the benefits of being baptized and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But the third thing I would do is keep improving. Like, it's one of my frustrations is just because you're a small church doesn't mean you have to be a bad preacher. Doesn't mean you have to have rubbish music. You may be there for a season and that's fine. If you are a bad preacher or have rubbish music, that's not an issue as long as you're on the journey of improving. We're not after perfection, but I think we can. With the amount of stuff that's on YouTube for free on how to communicate, how to do this stuff better, do it. Another thing I would do is connect with somebody so if you're a church of 30, connect with somebody who's a pastor of 70, 80.
Yes, yeah. Is there do you have like a pastor group chat with all the local pastors? Is that a thing?
Yeah, I guess so. Like we happen to have a sort of a pastor's breakfast kind of thing once a month. And then our movement, we have events throughout the year. But again, I think there's not too many people that go, hey, look, I want to take you out for coffee because I want to pick your brain. You've been wrong. Not many people are like, no, I'm not going to, get stuffed. Most people are like, wow, this is awesome. I get to, be a part of that. And so there's some of the bigger things. Yes, you need to make sure that your compliance is up to date. Yes, actually, that's probably another thing I would focus on. I think it's really important. In fact, I think the number one job of a leader is not that people would be safe, is that they would feel safe. So I think that matters. Even in your preaching, make sure you're preaching safe. Make sure that your cafe is safe. Make sure your kids' church is safe. Because again, if you go back to your kids inviting people over, people aren't going to invite their friends if it's not safe.
Yeah, that's right.
So I don't know. There's a bunch of things. As I said, I think there's a book or a podcast or something in
There's
it.
There definitely is. I mean, I'm happy to. I've said I would work with you on the podcast, so yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Well, we might need to do that.
That could be we're doing Gospels in a year.
Maybe
this year, maybe next year. That'll be the year for the podcast.
We'll see how we go.
But I'd love to see you on a book tour.
Where did it start? It started on a little podcast with Josh.
Yeah. I'd expect like a dedication. I'm expecting that. But look, we'll wrap it up there. Hopefully, there's some value in this for people, for pastors.
And if you're not a pastor, I apologise for
if you're not a pastor, thanks for watching anyway.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Easy, thank
Kenneth.
you. No problem, Eli.